Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be tracking a low pressure system that'll be moving out of the Rockies that could bring in winter storm like conditions for parts of the Rockies of Utah, Colorado, even up to parts of Wyoming. And that kind of expands into parts of the Central Plains and eventually getting up to parts of the Great Lakes in the Midwest. At the same time, here with this strong low pressure system, which will be rapidly deepening as it moves towards the Great Lakes, severe weather will be occurring across parts of the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, down to parts in the Mississippi River Valley as well. And some of it could be significant as well. Could be a severe weather outbreak for some of those regions as well. Certainly some big changes here since the last update, which we'll be talking about that. Before I get started with this video though, if you do like weather related content, you can always subscribe to my channel. I do this stuff here all the time on my YouTube channel as well. You can always hit that bell notification so you never miss an upload on here. We'll likely have more updates on this over the next couple of days here. So, since we got that out of the way, let's go and get started with the watch warning map here. And you can see it's a little bit active across parts of the western U.S. You got winter weather advisories across parts of California, Nevada, Utah, even the higher elevations in Arizona. And I also got some winter weather advisories up in the parts in the northwest. But really, the main area to focus on would be the higher elevations in Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming, where we could experience quite a bit of snow in those higher elevations. And that kind of expands into parts of South Dakota and Nebraska, where we do have a mix of winter storm watches and warnings in place. Don't be surprised if these winter storm watches expand into parts a little bit more into Wisconsin, eventually into parts of upper Michigan as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the video, but really the main topic of this system here is going to be severe weather. So we're going to get started with the SPC Outlook here. This is for today. We actually had, if I'm correct, we had a couple tornadoes down to parts of Florida in I'm not sure about Georgia, but at least down to parts of Florida, I think we had at least one tornado down there so far today. But the severe weather risk is over for them folks down there. Day two, which is tomorrow, maybe some thunder across parts of the south, and maybe for parts of the northwest as well. But on day three, this is where things get very interesting. We got a slight risk for severe weather, as expected, anywhere from northern Louisiana all the way up into parts of southern Indiana and western Kentucky, even getting into parts of central Kentucky as well. It also includes other places like eastern Arkansas, the northern half of Mississippi, far northwest of Alabama, the western half of Tennessee, southeastern Missouri, and southern Illinois as well. Don't be surprised if we see an enhanced risk upgrade. I made a little forecast for this here, on my opinion here, for the upcoming severe weather setup here. So we're going to get started with the NAM here, and it's going to be quiet really today. We've seen some snow across parts of the northeast that's caused some issues there for travel. But then there goes our system there in the Rockies there. That's going to bring a lot of snow again for those higher elevations. You can see that surface low across parts of Colorado there. It's a strong surface low, 997 millibars. So it's certainly a strong low out there. Eventually, you'll start to see this move out and track into the plains and eventually take a little bit more turn to the north as it gets closer to the Midwest and the Great Lakes. This is by 18Z on Friday, so this is Friday afternoon. So basically, your warfare at this point here is across these regions, and here you got cold front somewhere back here. And eventually, this system here is going to move very quickly to the northeast. And pay attention to the pressure of this low here, as you'll start to see here, especially when we get into the overnight hours on Friday and the Saturday morning. You'll start to see that pressure drop fairly quickly here. Some of the models have traded much stronger with this system here. Originally, we're probably talking about, I believe, around 995 millibars. It's kind of stronger than that with some of the newest model runs today. And meanwhile, in the cold sector of things, some snow across parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and parts of Iowa. Some places could see at least several inches of snow across those regions there as well. You can see here it doesn't really deepen all that much here. Honestly, I think it'll start to deepen when it gets into Iowa here. I think they could be a little bit an outlier here. I think it will deepen maybe a little bit earlier than that. But eventually, when it gets up to Wisconsin, though, you can see here 3 hours have passed. We already dropped 3 millibars. Not really exactly saying here this is going to be a bomb cyclone or anything. It may have a chance to become. But with a low pressure system dropping this quickly here, possibility of near blizzard conditions again for the Midwest. It's a possibility. Meanwhile, in the warm sector here, here's your cold front right here across parts of southeastern Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, and eventually moving into parts of southeastern Missouri. I do believe that development of the severe weather on here, at least reflectivity wise, is a little bit late here. This is kind of getting into the middle of the night of Friday night here. Finally, storms start to form across parts of Arkansas, Tennessee, and eventually that moves up to parts of Kentucky. We have some storms across parts of Indiana as well around that same time frame. Here's the next 3 hours. Check that out. Pressure down to 988 millibars. So certainly a very strong low pressure system here at this point here. And what this is going to do here is that the winds at the surface is going to be stronger here. So especially in the warm sector here, and even on the back side here on the southwestern quadrant of the low pressure system, things are going to get really windy. Uh, you could be talking about wind gusts even without thunderstorms, possibly 40 to 45 miles an hour in some places. And then again on the southwestern quadrant of this low pressure system with a strong northwest wind, you guys could see wind gusts may possibly up to 50 miles an hour, maybe isolated higher wind gusts as well. Now, the NAM kind of shows a worst case scenario here. Now, don't take this too seriously though, but here's your cold front back here. But look what's going on in Kentucky here. If this is correct, you're talking about training line of some strong to severe storms. Some of those could be supercells. Not only this could lead to a pretty dangerous severe weather threat across these areas, but it also lead to some flash flooding. Precipitable water numbers will be and we're talking about well above normal for this time of year. Looking in the National Service discussion at Louisville, they were talking about precipitable water numbers will be 300 to 350% above normal. Those are well above normal anomalies. That means any shower or thunderstorm that develops is likely to drop a lot of rain in a short period of time. And honestly, I think some of these models here may be a little bit underdone with some of those rainfall totals, which we've seen some rainfall amounts yesterday's video. They've been a little bit on the lower end side, but starting to think twice about it. I think those models are going to be underdone with these rainfall totals. And it seems like some of those higher rainfall totals may be slowly returning to the models here. Probably still looking at a general 1 to 3 inches of rain across parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, even getting into parts of Ohio as well. So we could see that flash flooding threat again for some of those areas as well. Eventually, that low still continues to move on to northeast, still rapidly deepening at this point here Saturday afternoon. It's another 80 millibar low. Here's your cold front here, going all the way down to Severn, Texas there, with a squall lines with showers and thunderstorms. Some of these could be strong to severe. Although I have doubts of Pennsylvania probably seeing that severe weather threat. Temperatures will be a little bit too cold up there. But when this eventually gets into parts in the mid-Atlantic here, some severe weather may occur across these regions in here, which you can see here pretty much in the evening hours on Saturday. You do see some redevelopment here along the cold front, and I think the damage winds will be the primary threat with this. There could be an isolated spin up tornado or two of those. We'll see about that. Let's check out the high risk NAM here. It's going to be pretty similar to the NAM here. Possibly a little bit stronger here. Well, maybe not a little stronger than the NAM. But what's interesting here is that originally what we're talking about maybe a positively tilted trough, a trough that will look like something like this. Looks like models have been trending towards a little bit more of a neutral type of trough here. There's been some back and forth arguments on Twitter that some people are saying this is still a positively tilted trough. Some of them are saying a negative tilted trough. Honestly, in my opinion here, I think we are trending towards more of a neutral trough. Over the last several runs here, some of these models here have been trading a little bit more negatively tilt here. And there is a difference between positively tilt and negative tilt troughs. Usually, with negative tilt troughs, uh, it can create bigger severe weather events. But still, with a positive tilt trough, though, you still could get big severe weather events, really. But worst case scenario is you start to see a negative tilt trough that'll help increase the wind shear across these regions here, and that can really increase your chances for severe weather. And some of it can be significant as well. We'll be able to check those upper level winds in a little bit here. But then again here's the high risk NAM here. It's actually very similar to the uh, GFS model. Not GFS, but the NAM, showing some of these cluster of thunderstorms here across Kentucky, training over some of the same areas. I don't think that will happen, but maybe a possibility. The NAM does have a tendency to really cluster things up, so I have some doubts on that. But then again, it may be a possibility with it as well. We can see more discrete cells, though, across parts of eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and western Tennessee. That's an area I'm kind of more focused right now. And I could go as far north as into parts of southwestern Kentucky as well with that threat. Here's the GFS model here. At around this time here, it's actually showing a stronger low with this, another 81 millibar low. Now, if that's the case there, if models do trend towards a stronger low here, if it happens earlier, the opportunities do increase here for more of a negative tilt trough here, which you can tell here when you kind of look at some of these blue lines here. It does show a little bit of a negative tilt trough here at around that point of time as well. So certainly something we have to pay attention to as well is how this trough here is going to be. Is it going to be positively tilt, neutral, or is it going to be negative tilt? We're going to see there. That's definitely going to be a pretty good question there with a severe weather set. But either way, severe weather is going to happen either way. There's still going to be plenty of wind shear there, even with a positively tilt trough. There's still going to be plenty of wind shear to work with. So it doesn't really matter a whole lot. But if we do see a negative tilt trough, yeah, it can increase your severe weather chances as well. If we do see that. Checking out the European model here, and you can see it shows a very strong low here. Seems like it's stronger than the NAM family as well. Then again, the GFS seems to be the strongest out of the rest here. At around this point here, it shows another 86 millibar low over Lake Michigan. There, heavy snow on the backside of this low here. And you can see here, this model here shows a little bit more of a neutral trough here. Could be a little bit more um, neutral tilt top of trough there as well. And you can see here in the warm sector here, there could be two different rounds of severe weather, especially further up north. Here's your main cold front back here. You do have lines with showers and thunderstorms. Main threat of those will probably be damaging winds, but out ahead of that line, though, it's where we could possibly see some supercells that may try to mix in there as well. There, of course, it will depend on instability as well. And you can see a little bit early on here, look all those scattered cells there over a pretty large region. I mean, it's not just going to be happening in such a specific area. This is going to be happening over multiple states. So this is certainly going to be a pretty big deal here with this system here, with this severe weather setup here. And you can see here after that, some strong storms may be possible across parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas here. As well. It does seem like the trough becomes maybe a little bit, looks to be still more neutrally tilt at that point as well. Now, if we kind of look into the 5 millibar winds here, though, seems like most people have been kind of focused out here. Now, it does look like a little bit more a neutral type of trough here, but I've noticed here there's a little bulge in Iowa. This is probably where some people are talking about the negative tilt trough there. But if that's true, if that's certainly what they're talking about there, that could increase your severe weather chances. So certainly pretty interesting here. But I think the bigger picture here is what this is back here would refer back to the west there. But certainly very interesting though having that little bulge over Iowa there. I think that's where they're talking about that negative tilt trough potential as well. But if the low pressure system does trend stronger, Expect your increased odds there of seeing more of a neutral to possibly negatively tilt trough at that point as well. If you check out the European model at the same time, it's actually a little bit more closer onto the positive tilt side, but still a little bit more on the neutral side at the same time. But it also has that same bulge there over Iowa as well. So that's certainly we may have to pay attention to as well. But if that's certainly true there, that's a little bit of a weaker negative tilt trough there as well. All right, let's kind of get in a little bit more detail with this here. So let's check out the low of a jet here at 850 millibars. So this is the GFS model here, and you can see here you got a pretty strong low of a jet here over such a very large region here, going over multiple states. Let me zoom that out so we can get those state lines of view. I mean, look how large this low of a jet is. It goes over so many states. It's ridiculously large here, unusually large for this time of year. I mean, you got a favorable low of a jet as far south as Louisiana, as far north as Michigan. I mean, this thing is huge. And if we go to 4 a.m., you can see there's some a little bit of an enhancement with that low of a jet across parts of Ohio, back down to parts of Kentucky as well. You'll see that star there. That's where I live there, by the way. Uh, it was my hometown anyway. That's why I see that star there. But anyways, as we kind of zoom in here just a little bit here, check out along this, uh, at this point here, this is where your line of storms could be here, and underneath that, where we have some of that strong low of a jet winds at the surface, boy, them winds will be gusty if that were to be correct. Check out these wind gusts here underneath that, and I believe these are caused by thunderstorms if I'm correct. And if that's certainly correct, now take this as a grain of salt here, but check out some of these wind gusts though. These are severe thunderstorm wind gusts, and this one here is almost to significant territory. Significant territory is 75 mile an hour and higher. But for the GFS model to show something like this is certainly something you don't see very often from the GFS model here. Have wind gusts this high, something like this. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've ever caught seeing that before there from the GFS model, which is certainly very interesting as well. Well, let's kind of backtrack a little bit here. Let's kind of go back to 7 p.m. and let's go to kind of, I don't know why it does this. Here we go. That little glitch there. But anyways here, where you got these blues and green and yellow colors, this is where you have some pretty good instability. Now the lighter blues, it's okay, but it kind of depends on the wind shear though. You've seen what happened on Monday morning's event. We had instability values only in 100 to 200 joules per kilogram, and we still had damaging winds and tornadoes. Excuse me, in Kentucky, which is pretty insane. We're talking about a very similar environment to that, but with more instability and higher dew points. And that really tells you something, again, if you're talking about that, yeah, there could be more active severe weather with that compared to Monday's event, which Monday's event was a little bit more isolated. It was more focused in these areas right in here. But you're talking about a much larger region here, which then again, this could certainly lead to a severe weather outbreak here. But here's again 7 o'clock here. Your greatest instability is going to be in southeastern Texas there. If you check out wind shear values here, some of your greatest wind shear is going to be further up to the north here. Where we have some of that good instability, though, it's going to be underneath some good wind shear as well. Really over 25 or 20, I would consider it's good wind shear, which you can see here in the orange colors. It's such over a strong or a large region, I should say. But really, at least 35 here, I would consider a strong wind shear. Of course, this is 7 o'clock here. This is when initiation should start. But as we kind of go deeper into the night here, expect these wind shear values to kind of go up here. So there's 10 o'clock. Here's 1 a.m. And here's 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., it's usually kind of peak here over some of the strongest wind shear. And sometimes 7 a.m. is as well. into early Saturday morning. And you can see here your line of storms at this point here will be across parts of eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, back down to parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana as well. We'll back this up a little bit here to back to 7 o'clock. Let's check out them helicity values here, and really all you really need is over 150 here, and that'll be good for severe weather. We're at least doubling that number. Check out how these numbers here kind of go up as we kind of go deeper into the night. Yeah, you can see here very high numbers here. You got values here that are between 370 up to 450, which is very strong wind shear. I mean, that's very strong wind shear here. That's what I would consider it. Here's one. Then again, underneath some of the pockets of that very strong low of a jet. So of course, that's where we're gonna have some of the strongest wind shear. It does make a little bit of sense there as well. But then again, lots of wind shear to work with. Here's your surface-based lift index here. If we kind of go back to 1 a.m., you can see it's over a pretty large region as well with that lift index as well. So certainly a pretty favorable setup there for severe weather as well indicated by the GFS. Let's move on to the European model here, and we'll go down to the low of a jet region. We kind of zoom in here. So this is 3 a.m. You can see here some of the strongest low of a jet looks to be over parts of Ohio and Kentucky around that time frame. But then again here, some of your most favorable low of a jet extends all the way down to the Gulf Coast. It's not just the Ohio Valley that'll have good amount of wind shear, even though they have some of the strongest wind shear, which is very favorable for severe weather. The favorable severe weather territory goes all the way down to the Gulf Coast. I mean, it's going to be happening again over such a very large region. It's really ridiculous here. We'll kind of back up to 8 p.m. and you can see there's still a very strong low of a jet over a very, very large region. But the K pair kind of helps here, kind of pinpoint a little bit better here where your greatest severe weather potential would be, which compared to yesterday's Euro run, this is much better. On the last video, we had values scattered about 200 to 600. Now we're talking about widespread values up to 1,000 or higher. And that's certainly very concerning there. That's certainly a big uptrend with the HER model here, which is not a good thing here. Another thing with this event here is that we're going to have temperatures probably near record highs in some areas in here. It's going to be very mild, probably going to feel like April, something like that anyway. So it's going to feel very mild. It's also going to be feeling a little humid. Dew point of 66 in southwestern Kentucky. That's pretty insane. I'm not going to lie to you guys. That's pretty insane. I mean, dew points in the mid 60s in December in the lower Ohio Valley. I mean, I think that's a pretty rare occurrence. That's something you don't see very often here. And that really indicates you got such a high moisture supply here as well. I mean, mid 60 dew points in December. There's tons of moisture up in the atmosphere. And then again, that's going to lead to that flash flood threat. And also really ramps up your severe weather threat as well. And this is certainly not good news here. And like I said earlier here, if this low here does trend stronger here, it's going to be able to pull more of this Gulf of Mexico moisture here. And not only to bring up higher values, but those 60 plus values are going to go further up north. With the European model here at around this point here, here's the Interstate 70 corridor here in Indiana, venturing into Illinois. It's up to 60 degrees there. If we go up to 1 a.m., look how far north those 60 dew points go up to. Northwestern Ohio. And that's from the GFS model. If you look to the European model, it's not as far north, but it does go a little bit further north than the Interstate 70 corridor up in Indiana. So, something you don't see very often at all. Here, especially in Kentucky here, what's very interesting here, usually, Your warmest temperatures here are around 5 p.m. Temperature is 62 degrees. Look what happens when we get to midnight. Temperatures continue to go up. You'll be talking about temperatures in the mid 60s. Honestly, I think I would not be surprised to see upper 60s to possibly getting close to the low 70s mark, especially in southwestern Kentucky. I mean, I would not be surprised to see that. And those are very mild temperatures. That's at least 30 degrees above normal. So, well above normal temperatures out there as well. And then again, you'll be challenging those record highs as well. So certainly a very serious warm sector that we got here as well. And I don't think there's much anything else to check in here other than the precipitation here. We can check out the lightning density here. Check that out. It's got thunderstorms up in Pennsylvania and southwestern New York. That's something you don't see very often. Even some thunder up in southern Michigan. That's also something you don't see very often as well. And here's 9 o'clock here. You do have possibly some supercellular storms out across parts of Kentucky here, where you have a lot of wind shear out there, even back across parts of Indiana. You got some storms getting ready to fire up along the cold front. You got better coverage of thunderstorms back in parts of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and western Tennessee as well. Then again, here's the lightning flash density. You can certainly see here where those thunderstorms are going to be. And here's that line of storms here. Your cold front's more back here. And what's interesting here is how these models here further up north have 2 rounds of thunderstorms here. So we'll kind of see what happens there. For areas a little further up north, we'll see how the trends go with that. But then again, as we kind of get into later, into late morning of Saturday, those storms here do start to weaken here, especially up in the Ohio Valley. The storms will continue to weaken here, but even with a little bit of thunder, you can still get strong to maybe borderline severe storms up there as well. All right, here's reflectivity here from the NAM again. You can see there, kind of similar scenario here with the European model as well. You got 2 different waves of thunderstorms up in the parts of Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. But let's check out the low of a jet there from the NAM, which is a little bit of a higher resolution model compared to some of the other models. You can actually see there when we kind of go into later in the day on Saturday. It's got a strong low of a jet across the mid-Atlantic there. So it'll certainly help increase that wind shear. And that favorable low of a jet goes back and down to parts of Georgia as well at around the same time frame. But check this out here. This is kind of getting into the early morning hours on Saturday. Very large sector here of some favorable low of a jet here in the red. That's where you got at least 50 knots. And we get into those purple colors, that's at least 70 knots. That's what I would consider a strong low of a jet there. If you kind of go here in the next couple hours here into Saturday morning, you got a strong low of a jet across parts of Kentucky, down in parts of Tennessee as well, which will certainly help increase that wind shear out there as well. And even a little bit early on here, you got strong wind shear across parts of Illinois and Indiana as well. Let's check out them dew points there at around the same time frame, see how far north these dew points could go. And while this kind of loads here, you can see here doesn't really quite get up to the Interstate 70 corridor, but at least does include southern Indiana and central Kentucky. That's probably how far north it's going to get. Possibly into parts of southern Ohio as well. Could see that type of action there with those 60 dew points as well. If you check out the surface space in Cape here, look at this. Certainly much higher here than the last time we've seen this here. Now we're getting widespread values of 1,000 plus, which would be pretty favorable for severe weather as well. And with wind shear like this, really all you need is like 300 to 500 joules per kilogram to get some severe weather. I mean, this is going to be the same amount of wind shear, possibly stronger wind shear compared to Monday's event. And you got estimated values at least probably tripled in some places in there. So imagine that. If what the potential of what could happen here with a setup like this here. What's also interesting here at around the same time frame, though, is that there's going to be an area of some elevated mid-level lap rates as well, which can certainly help with those updrafts with some of those storms as well. But go back to 3Z here on Saturday, so this is a little past midnight here in Eastern time. Look across Tennessee and Kentucky here, favorable mid-level lap rates here, which could certainly help with a hail threat. Even back down across parts of Arkansas and Mississippi with some favorable mid-level lap rates as well. Now, low-level lap rates, there's going to be absolutely nothing when it comes to low-level lap rates, but those mid-level lap rates can certainly help with some of those updrafts, and that can help increase that hail threat as well. So we could see some hail out there with some of those storms as well. And let's see here. Let's check out the surface composite here. And usually I will pay attention to areas in the yellow and the orange for the greatest threat here for severe weather here. And you can see here, when we go to 60 here, check this out here. You got a pretty large area of some orange colors there across most of Arkansas, western Tennessee, southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, southwestern Kentucky, and northern Mississippi. You can see here that continues to move on to the east, and where some of those storms form, those supercell composite numbers do go down. But this really tells you something, though. The severe weather threat is going to be going through the entire night of Friday night into Saturday morning here, especially for areas a little further to the south as well. If we kind of back this up a little bit here, if we can get some soundings out here, we'll go, let's see here. We'll go to eastern Arkansas. How about that? Eastern Arkansas. Let's see what the NAM has to say. And it's not very impressive over the wind shear, but it is still favorable for some severe weather. But seems like what's leading to these higher numbers here is those instability values, 1300 surface base. That's pretty good for this time of year. It's not very strong there with that low of a jet here, but if we do go a little further to the north and east here, maybe like western Tennessee, for example, we probably should be able to see greater wind shear out here. And certainly we do here. Lower instability values though, but even with lower instability values here, you can see here 800 joules per kilogram of the surface is still favorable for severe weather. The storm to felicity values will be well over 400, so that's some very strong wind shear. The lap rates are also pretty elevated as well, which will also help increase that severe weather threat as well. We do have a little bit of an elevated mix layer in there in the mid levels as well, which can also certainly help with those updrafts as well. You can see it continues to move on to the east as well. So really, every sound that you're going to look at will be favorable for severe weather. This is your significant tornado parameters, and usually these numbers here are overdone. Usually, over a 1, you have a tornado threat, but over a level 2, strong tornadoes could be possible. And you can see here we do have some pretty high numbers out there, high as a 5. We haven't seen numbers that high in a while. We really haven't. And you can see here the greatest opportunity here for possibly for tornadoes looks to be in this area right in here. As we kind of go a little bit deeper into the night here, that kind of expands a little further to the east, include a little bit more of Tennessee and Kentucky at around that same time frame as well. Let's check out the high-risk NAM here with this event, and we won't go as detailed in here with the high-risk NAM, but it does show that reflectivity in here. And some of these models here are honestly a little bit too late with development here. It has development during the middle of the night. Honestly, I think it happened as early as probably in the evening hours on Friday. I think that's when we start to see some development, especially a little further to the south as well. But you can see at around the same time frame, it does show some scattered cells out there as well. Some of those will try to rotate as well. At the same time, here's your cold front as well, which we can sort of see a line of some strong severe storms along that as well. But any storm out ahead of it will have a chance to rotate as well, maybe become supercells as well. As we kind of go a little further to the north here at the same time here, very interesting solution here. It's got a little boundary here that kind of sets up across parts of Kentucky, and you kind of get these multiple waves of thunderstorms to move across some of those same areas there as well. And that can change as well. And then again, the highest name has a tendency to cluster things up a lot. Here's your superset composite values, though. And you can see here some pretty good numbers here over a pretty large region here. It's actually a larger region than what the NAM shows. You can see here some of your greatest probabilities could go as far north as near that Interstate 70 corridor as well. If we can get a sounding out of Western Tennessee again, I want to try and see if we can get a good sounding in southern Louisiana. Well, northern Louisiana, I should say. And down there, because even down there will be favorable for severe weather as well. If the sounding here can load, which there it is, and then again, favorable setup for severe weather, wind shear's there, instability is there. There's a pretty good mid-level lap rates as well, which can certainly help influence that severe weather threat as well. If we go down to Louisiana, look at those numbers down here. If we kind of get a sounding up in northern Louisiana, since this thing here does load, actually, we can do it now. So getting a sounding up in northern Louisiana really quick. I guess, oh wait, here we go. And that might be that's not really a good sounding that we're looking for. Um, let's kind of go a little bit earlier on here. Yeah, there we go. A little bit earlier on. We'll try that again. As that loads there, let's actually check out the Hermon, which doesn't go for the entire event. We're not going to show the reflectivity on here at Soundings with the Herm model because this video is going to be ridiculously long. But you can see here, it also shows a very favorable environment here over a large region as well. The Hermon only goes as far out as 48 hours, so really the evening hours on Friday here. But don't be surprised if all this here expands further up to the north to include more of Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, and even Indiana as well for those areas a little further up north as well. But it certainly shows some of those higher supercell composite probabilities. And here's a, yeah, this is a much better sounding carrier. You can see here during the Friday evening, wind shear values will still be favorable for severe weather. You got a pretty good elevated mix layer as well. Lap rates do support some severe weather. Downdraft Cape actually supports some damage winds. The hodograph is good, instability is good, and yeah, favorable for all hazards in that type of environment as well. And so this is my current thoughts here, at least for right now. Expect changes here tomorrow. There is one change I wanted to make here, and that's to upgrade the tornado probabilities. I'm going to upgrade that to 10% hatched area. And that's going to be likely of areas within the enhanced risk, and that could get moved further to the southwest as well, maybe to include a little bit more of southern Arkansas here. But really, the areas you need to pay attention to is areas in the slight risk zone here of what I've highlighted here. We can certainly see some pretty good, higher chance of severe weather in those regions in there as well. But even areas in the marginal risk will still have to watch for that severe weather risk as well here. And then again, I would expect to see an enhanced risk to be issued by the Storm Prediction Center tomorrow as well. Before we end the video, really want to check out really quick here with the probabilities for snowfall amounts. We'll start off with tomorrow here. This is from the Weather Prediction Center. This is your probabilities for snowfall. Areas in the red here, this is where we expect the greatest probabilities. You can see there, northwestern Nebraska, far southwestern South Dakota, and then you got the higher elevations of Wyoming and Colorado, with a very high chance to see at least 4 inches of snow. And you can see you got that little sliver that gets up into parts of Iowa and southern Minnesota as well. But kind of go back here. Here's your probabilities for at least 4 inches of snow on day 3, which is Friday. You can see some of those greatest probabilities up in the parts of Wisconsin and upper Michigan. And eventually goes into parts of Canada. If we want to go a little further, this is your probabilities for at least 8 inches of snow, with the greatest probabilities in the higher elevations of Colorado. There is a chance for at least 8 inches of snow for parts of Nebraska, Wyoming, and South Dakota and this is for Friday. And you do have a slight chance for at least 8 inches of snow for parts of Wisconsin and upper Michigan. And why not go for 12 inches? It actually does have some higher probabilities in some of those higher elevations in Colorado. And then here's for Friday. And it does have at least a 10% chance to see at least 12 inches of snow up in upper Michigan, which some of that will be mixed with lake effect snow up there as well. But overall, seems like a winter storm will be likely for some of those regions as well, across parts of the Midwest, the plains, parts of the plains, eventually back into parts of the Rockies as well. We'll likely see a winter storm out of the system as well. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put the comment section down below. I answer you guys questions. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.